All right, welcome to another episode in Dynasty Life. It's your boy Steve.
With a Polish hammer.
No Bagla special.
Yes, and we are hitting you today with another episode of grading your Dynasty teams. And this team is actually in our Dynasty League. He did request us to do, to grade his team. So here we are looking at his team here on the screen. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Juju, Woods, Andrews, and Chubb. Okay, we do three wide receiver, two running back with the flex there. So initially, just looking at it, I mean, obviously very strong at running back, a little less at wide receiver there. Got the nice Lamar Jackson and Andrews combo. Bagala, what do you think here? Just looking at it straight out.
Just looking at it straight out, he has his running backs are solid. He has a lot of questions at wide receiver, but I feel like those questions are going to be answered early in the season. Keenan Allen is not getting any younger, and he tends to get banged up. If Mike Williams can establish himself as the number one wide receiver in that offense, this team looks a little bit different. Mike Williams' problem is he has not been able to stay healthy.
He did last year.
He did last year, and you saw the result of that. You know what I'm saying? Wide receiver 9.
That's pretty good.
He had, and overall he's 12. If I'm looking at that correctly, no, overall 51 at that wide receiver points, I think it was.
He was number 12 wide receiver in PPR.
Yes. So if Mike Williams can stay healthy, he's been the Chargers' downfield threat. Keenan Allen does most of his work and the numbers. Mike Williams is a big threat for him. Since he is in our league, he's been trying to get a wide receiver. He's been shopping Mike Williams. I think he just waits on Mike Williams. Mike Williams had a breakout season last year. He got the extension. I think they're going to feature him more. And I think if Mike Williams turns into that wide receiver 1, this can be dangerous because you expect Juju to give you wide receiver 2 numbers. Just being in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes is so good. I don't typically like Juju, but he's no scrub. I don't care for his TikToks, but he's a good football player. Robert Woods is a question mark coming off the ACL. Blanco, like you said it, and I have to agree with you. Just that second wide receiver in that Tennessee offense does not always produce. And Robert Woods, 30 years old, coming off of the ACL, you really don't know what you're going to get with him. So
take a look at his bench there. What does he have on the bench?
That worries me. The only person you should be looking at on his bench is all the way down in that right there, Odell Beckham Jr. If Odell Beckham Jr. goes somewhere with a decent quarterback and he comes off the injury well, I don't know when he's going to come back. That's the thing. But if somehow he gets him for, a playoff run, that could be a little different because you saw once Odell got to LA, Odell has a lot left in the tank. It does not look good with the second ACL injury. Does not. But if I'm not dropping Odell. I'm not, nobody's going to take him because he's hurt. Don't know when he's going to play. So you're in a position where you have to hold on to him. So it's really because you expect Henry to do his thing. You expect his running backs to do his thing. Lamar's there. He got the Lamar to Andrews connection. That's big. He did trade back into the first round this year. Tony has some upside, like Blanco was saying. And I know that, on this show, we really haven't spoke about the individual defensive players, but we need to speak about Trayvon Diggs because this man, as a cornerback, he put some points up on the board last year.
Yes, he did.
Number 2 overall cornerback.
He put some points up. He was returning interceptions. That is an offensive weapon without even being on offense. And for a cornerback to come in and you know, on certain games and come in and get a pick six or multiple picks and give you 15 points, 20 points, that can change the tide in the game in itself, or at least keep it close. So I think he does. I like his team. A move for wide receiver could be made, or you got to pray that Mike Williams is that number one guy. But his running backs and Lamar and Andrew is what's going to carry him.
Yeah,
I look at this team as maybe a B plus.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into that in a second. A BP plus. Okay, well, just initially, we'll get into some what would you do also, but just initially, Hammer, what do you think? Just initially, then we'll get into grading it and what kind of moves you try and make. But just looking at it, what are you thinking here?
Initially, the running backs are absolutely loaded. He has 3 essentially number 1 running backs, 2 in his obviously RB, and he's got a number 1 running back in his flex spot. The Mike Williams thing is super interesting. I'm actually really happy for Mike Williams. I had him last year in this exact Dynasty league. And he got off to the red hot start. He looked amazing. The key was he stayed healthy, right? I feel like that's every year with Mike Williams. You wonder if he's going to stay healthy. And the man played 16 games. Now, looking at it here, 15, 15, 16, and he didn't give you the production he did here. Now, was that a product of him coming into his own? Is that a product of him developing a nice rapport with Justin Herbert? Was that a product of him just being in a contract year and just needed to ball out? I know we see that a lot of times where a lot of guys go into a contract year and they ball out, they get the big contract, and then you wonder what's going to happen after that. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Mike Williams. He's young enough, 27 years old. So I think he has wide receiver 1 upside, as Bagala was saying. Juju Smith-Schuster is another one of those wild card guys where you don't know exactly what you're going to get. We haven't seen much of him. Obviously, he was hurt last year. The year before that, not as productive as many people would have liked. And then Robert Woods. So, there needs to be some upgrades there. If you're relying on those 3 guys to give you wide receiver 2 production with wide receiver 1 upside, you're probably going to fall a little short. But I do think his running backs, in particular, a guy like Austin Eckler, I don't think people know or realize how dynamic this guy really is. You know what I mean? And playing in that Chargers offense, I think his running backs could make up for some of that wide receiver production that he may not get. So overall, if his running backs, I would grade his running backs alone as an A, right? And if his wide receivers are a B, that kind of levels it out a little bit. So Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, I got torched by those guys last year, so I know exactly what they could do in a given game. I think they went off for almost 100 points combined in one game against the Colts. So that's a really nice tandem to have. Mark Andrews is almost a wide receiver. He's going to give you low-end wide receiver 1 production at the tight end spot. So I think he's set there. So overall, if I would have to grade this team, I would give it a B plus, just for the fact that he's got some really high dynamic guys that could really put up some points. I would try and get a more consistent wide receiver to plug in there, considering his wide receivers are a really huge question mark. I know Odell's on the bench. Again, another question mark coming off the injury. Overall, I'm giving him a B plus with a upside, just because he has a ton of high value, high explosive guys. And we'll get into the moves he could make, obviously a little bit later on. But overall, I'm going with a B plus. and with a upside.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's got that combo, Lamar Jackson and Andrews. Obviously the running backs are just crazy. Henry, Eckler, and Chubb. But I mean, if everybody stays healthy, I mean, yeah, this is a really good team, and those running backs will make up for, and tight end will make up for Robert Woods if he doesn't do much. And then Juju, I see more as like a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2 upside.
Yep.
But if Williams could stay healthy, I mean, yeah, he could still be wide receiver 1. It's just that big if there. My biggest concerns are obviously just the wide receivers are just question marks. Does Mike Williams stay healthy? Does Juju ball out in Kansas City? Um, you know, so I mean, if I had to grade the team, I'd probably give it a B plus right now. Now getting into what moves I think he should make. For me, I'm coming off Derrick Henry. I don't want to be the one that he breaks down on. And you're just fine with obviously Eckler and Chubb there. But if you could trade Henry for a wide receiver 1, I mean, that's the move that you need to make, because that pretty much solves your wide receivers. And then you can rely on Mike Williams as wide receiver 2 and Juju as wide receiver 3. And then you
Derrick Henry was running back 14 or running back 20.
And he didn't play half the season.
I know, it's crazy.
Played half the season.
It's crazy, but
I'm not trading Derrick Henry.
Breaks down, and if I could get a young wide receiver 1 that is going to set me up for the future, then I would do that. But that's just me. But Bagala, what do you think? What are you doing? What moves are you trying to make to get a wide receiver 1? Or what would you do just in general? Do you think he needs to go out and get a wide receiver 1, or should he just stick it out where he's at?
For me, it's just that trade Henry. We're not going to get into the trades that he made, but he traded for Henry. He traded a young wide receiver for Henry. So it makes no sense to try and you're not going to get better than what you traded away to get him for.
I
because
agree.
you probably had one of the best options out there. So you keep Henry. And
it was Jamar Chase, to be exact.
To be exact. So it doesn't. Right now, you have to stand firm, because if Mike Williams gets that, it turns into that wide receiver 1 for you, you're set. With your running backs, your quarterback, your tight end, you're set. And it doesn't matter what Juju gives you, because Mike Williams is going to give you 15 to 20. Those running backs are pounding. You got Lamar just running all over and throwing into Mark Andrews. Like, this team is a close to, it's a championship caliber team. If Mike Williams does what he does, you're not going to get any better than this. You make another trade with this team, you're going to make this team worse. And that's the problem. And that's what, you have to, you got Chubb, you got Henry. You got to, now you set yourself up. You got to take those running backs and hope you bull your way through the playoffs. You understand what I'm saying? And I think Derrick Henry still has a run in him, and you, Steve, I know you're afraid of him breaking down, but trading for Henry at this point, you basically say, all right, that's my horse, and that's who I got to go with.
I forgot he made that trade to begin with, because he had the wide receiver there already. I had forgot that he had made
on Mike Williams.
For me, I wouldn't have never done.
No, I don't think we would have either. But on Mike Williams, you have to understand, in his first couple of years in the league, Phillip Rivers is a good quarterback. But when Mike Williams got there, Phillip Rivers was diminishing, and his arm was basically a wet noodle. So he wasn't throwing it deep to him and things like that. You see where the man is when he's healthy. Now, hopefully he can stay that way next year. Josh, Herbert's only going to get better. You know what I'm saying? And with Mike Williams, I think Mike Williams can put on a nice little run here. I would keep this team the way it is. I pray Mike Williams does wide receiver one things by the trade deadline, maybe mid-season. If Mike Williams is not giving me what I want, that's when I trade one of these running backs. But right now, I don't trade these running backs. I think he's set. I think he has a potential wide receiver one, Juju, wide receiver two upside. Like you said, you don't know what's going to happen with him. He hasn't played. If you can, he's hoping that Tony, evolves into that wide receiver three for him. You know what I'm saying? For this year, it's Tony's second year. Tony is dynamic. I'm a Giants fan. Full disclosure, I did not like when they drafted him, but after seeing him work in a few games, if he can stay healthy, he reminds me of like a young Tyreek Hill, fast, twitchy, can make people miss in the open field, and he's a threat to take it to the rack at any time. He's going to take it. He could take it to the house, and I think that's what he's hoping on, and hoping he stays healthy, and the Giants have some cohesion on offense. But yeah, I stay with this team, and I hope. And I hope, and I don't think it's like you're praying to the gods, because I think Mike Williams is definitely capable of having a repeat season.
Yeah. Hammer, are you making any moves here, or are you staying put as well?
It's an interesting dynamic when you talk about how front loaded he is at running back and how many question marks there are at the wide receiver spot, right? So it's all about, are you putting your eggs in the Mike Williams basket to even repeat what he did last year? Is he going to give you 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns again? That's a big question. That's a big question. Now, I will say that I do think the Justin Herbert factor is a big piece of that, and the fact that Keenan Allen's getting a little bit older, and Keenan Allen's never really been a downfield vertical threat, really much of his career. He's a possession guy. I love Keenan Allen, honestly. I thought he was a little
running.
I thought he was always a little more injury plagued than I would like, but Keenan Allen can ball. But I do think the fact that Mike Williams is 6'4", he's a big dude. He's in the prime of his career, what we think it should be at 27 years old. He's playing with a stud at quarterback. I think the pieces around him are pretty good as well, with Eckler, obviously. Like I said, Keenan's there. A good young quarterback that is obviously the unquestioned starter there. So all the pieces are in place for Mike Williams to even build upon the season he had last year. As long as he stays on the field, I feel like his production could be somewhere in that 10 to 15 range, and that's good enough for wide receiver one production. Now, the key for me is, and maybe what I would think about doing, is moving off of Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb does get banged up a little bit, as do a lot of running backs, but I would see if I could package a Nick Chubb to maybe the team that has a Kareem Hunt, and see if that would entice somebody, maybe get a wide receiver there. I would put him on a trading block, just see what you could get for him. Doesn't mean you have to trade him. See what the market looks like. Nick Chubb is a running back one. We all know what his talent is, and they run the ball in Cleveland. So I would put Nick Chubb out there just to see what I could fish for a wide receiver. Even if I do get 75, 80 cents on the dollar for Nick Chubb, I think it's worth it to push down some of those other pieces. Say Robert Woods is your flex instead of your wide receiver 3, and then you have another wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. I think that's really the only move he would need to make. I don't necessarily think it's a move you make just to make it, but I think it's a move that should be at least entertained to see if you can get some more stability at the wide receiver position.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, for me, I gotta come off of Henry. Gotta come off of my guy.
We know he's not doing that. No,
he went out and made
do
a trade
that.
for Henry. For me, I just want, for me personally, I'd rather have a longer time of contention and not having to worry about a position, like I'd way rather just have, Jamar Chase there.
Well,
Or somebody
yeah,
young like that, or Metcalf or something like that, because that I know is just going to keep me in contention for a lot longer. Because as we know, the running backs production, after 28 is on the decline, so the value is only going to go down. And then he's got not much value really at wide receiver right now, unless Mike Williams, does what he's supposed to do. So,
Well,
for me, yeah, that's why I would just get off of Henry for a nice young wide receiver.
But Steve, if you know he's not going to do that, take that out of the equation. What would you do if you know moving Derrick Henry is not on the table?
All right, so if Derrick Henry's not moving on the table, I'd probably stay exactly where I'm at and hope for the best with Williams
exactly.
and Juju,
Yes.
because I don't want to give up Chubb. I think he's valuable, especially now with Deshaun Watson there. I think he has potential to just give you an insane touchdown. So I don't know.
Yes.
So I wouldn't really think I'd want to come off of Chubb either, because I wouldn't want to be stuck with only Derrick Henry and Eckler,
I got
because
you. That makes sense.
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
going down, or so
Or Eckler.
I'd probably just stay where I'm at, because obviously, yeah, he made the trade. He got rid of Chase. He has Henry now, so he obviously did not want that young wide receiver on his team. He didn't want to
I did
that way, unless he is having second thoughts about it now and he wants to change his mind. But yeah, I think at this point I'd stay exactly where I am and hope for the best. Maybe you can offer up Mike Williams and a first round pick and go get yourself a nice young receiver if you want. Then you don't have to worry about Mike Williams being healthy or not.
So what would that young receiver?
Maybe you take somebody that's in love with Juju and you throw a pick in there, or a next year first, and try and get somebody better than that. But I'm looking for obviously Jamar Chase and Justin
Well,
Jefferson.
that's
Hard to get, but I'm looking at
yeah.
DJ Metcalf, AJ Brown, something like that.
But that's the thing. This team does not have their next year's first round pick.
Oh,
so right. It was
this year, which is not all right. Yeah,
there was some questionable moves.
So now you're kind of stuck. Yeah, in that case,
yes. So you're stuck because
14 with Williams or something.
Yeah, you're stuck because you cannot trade Chubb. Not with King Henry coming off of a foot injury. And yes, I think King Henry's going to come back on the field and he's going to rumble again. I really do. But just in case, in the event, if he gets hurt again and you trade Chubb away, you're smoked.
Yeah.
You're smoked.
Absolutely.
You're smoked.
That's your leverage there. So yeah, I think he's definitely. I think
you gotta stay where you're at right now. You gotta stay where you're at, and this team, as constructed, just the heavy running back with say what you want. He has a number one receiver. His name is Mark Andrews.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's true as well.
And then he has the combo with Lamar and Mark. This team, if his running backs stay healthy, this team is going to be a tough out. Eckler catches the ball. He's a de facto receiver. You understand what I'm saying? And then you got Chubb
will make up for it.
Yeah, the Chubb and Henry running the rock. If Mike Williams ends up giving you wide receiver one production, this team is tough to beat.
Yeah. How you guys feeling about Lamar Jackson and his I know he's going through a contract kind of negotiation sort of thing with Baltimore, and then obviously his health.
Well, he's his own agent. He doesn't have an agent. I think that it can go a couple of different ways. I think he's trying to hold out, but I think he's got to try and make it. He wants something like Deshaun Watson got, is what, obviously, with all that guaranteed money. So if he wants to get,
he's not going to get it.
He's got to do it now, because the problem is if the next person in line doesn't get the Deshaun Watson guaranteed money like he got, now the market is shifted. Like it's
Steve,
got to happen more than once. It happened once.
Steve,
It's got to happen again to change that market. If it
yeah,
doesn't happen, Lamar Jackson put himself in a
Steve,
worse situation.
but the thing with the Deshaun Watson contract, that contract has changed quarterback contracts for the rest of the eternity in the NFL. Not
Not
one quarterback.
necessarily.
No.
Somebody else has to get that money as well.
No. The top guys that are going to be in line for contracts that play top ball, top at their position, and are nobody's going to take less than fully guaranteed. Why would
But
you?
the other owners say no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that.
Somebody
So that's what
will.
I'm saying.
Somebody
If somebody else
will.
does sign a deal and it's not that all that guaranteed money that Watson got,
So
then you're not
so
likely to get that money, you know?
so you think one of these young quarterbacks,
Justin Herbert.
whatever, Justin Herbert. You think
Mhm.
Justin Herbert's not going to go to his agent and say, "I want fully guaranteed money." He got it. I put up better numbers than him, and I didn't get in trouble. I want fully guaranteed money.
I don't know about better numbers than him, but don't forget Watson has been doing it for a little while too. I mean,
He
Herbert's got to
has, but
continue
he's
to
also missed the season, Steve.
continue to do what he's doing. But
He's
but
also
Burrow.
and another owner has
and
to
Burrow.
do it. If another owner doesn't do it, then it's not necessarily
Somebody will.
Somebody will.
And
I
you
agree.
do not want to be the owner or the GM that let Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow walk out the door because you wouldn't fully guarantee their contract. You don't want to be that guy. For me, with Lamar Jackson, I'm not giving it to him. I'm not giving him a fully guaranteed contract. I won't do it because he runs so much. Polish, if you could pull up his his attempts.
Right here.
His
Got him
rushing
right here.
is right
Well,
there.
that's what I'm saying. If
As
they don't do
a
it,
quarterback,
that might change things.
huh?
Because if he doesn't get it, then now they have something to stand on. Like,
Not true. Not true. Because if you go over to Justin Herbert's rushing attempts, they're significantly lower than Lamar Jackson. He's not running the ball as much. He's not putting himself in harm's way outside of the tackle boxes. He's playing quarterback inside to throw the ball downfield. They have totally two different styles.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Lamar Jackson's dynamic. Blanc, I just want to come at you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Carr was the number 13 quarterback. Look who is the number 15 quarterback last year.
Boom.
I'm not saying he's better. I'm not
That's
saying
a far. He just crop dusted all over your open house. Blanc.
I'm not saying that
Lamar Jackson missed 1, 2, 3, 4 games.
I'm not saying
games.
he's better,
He
but
5 games.
But
and he was still number 15. That should reverse your perspective right there. He
not
missed
at all. You want to know why? Because
almost as good as Derek Carr.
Derek Carr didn't miss games.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he doesn't miss these 5 games,
that's fine and well. And I was actually looking at the game log for Lamar Jackson. I mean,
that big game with Mark Andrews against Indianapolis skews his numbers a lot.
It's
about a lot of stuff.
It's not exactly
he only played 1 year, 16 games. Right? His first year is the only year he played the full season, is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I mean, he was number 1 that next year, obviously. He played 15 out of 16. But
so last year was really the first year he actually missed substantial time.
But what we're saying is that his style of play and the amount of attempts he has as a runner puts him at a significant risk for getting injured again, and it's one of those things. I know we talk about the contract, we talk about, his productivity from a fantasy standpoint, but Lamar scares me, man. He's a dynamic player, but he scares me not only if I was an NFL GM, but if I'm a fantasy GM, he scares me a little bit because he reminds me of a true boomer bust. I know boomer bust, we usually talk about wide receivers, but he could be a real boomer bust from the quarterback position. And if I'm a GM of a fantasy team, I don't know that I'm putting my eggs in the Lamar Jackson basket. If I could field something, if I could trade Lamar Jackson for Derek Carr, I probably wouldn't do that. If if push came to shove. But if I could move Lamar Jackson for Justin Herbert, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but even Derek Carr, if you want to come off Lamar Jackson, if you're scared and you want to, trade down and pick up, Derek Carr with some picks or another piece or something, then
I
yeah,
would do it.
definitely, if you're scared, that's definitely,
Or because but this team had Derek Carr, traded Derek Carr for Lamar.
That's true.
Now,
no,
if you want to turn around and try and trade, would you trade Lamar Jackson for Matt Stafford and some picks?
Probably.
yeah,
Probably.
yeah, probably, definitely. I mean, and just if you look at Lamar's numbers, I mean, he's thrown for barely over 3,000 yards once.
It's the rushing.
It's the
I know
rushing.
that. Obviously, the rushing is just,
It's off
insane.
the charts as a runner.
Like I said, can he, continue to do that for a long time? QBs like him don't really last that long
No.
at like other QBs,
And that comes down exactly what Bagala was saying about the contract. They don't this style of play at quarterback does not preclude
Say
you to play
guaranteed money.
hasn't
10
shown that he
years.
can pass either. I mean, Michael Vick wasn't a great passer, but I think he was better passer than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, that's
No,
debatable.
it is. I think they're kind of even, but
Later on in his
know,
career, Vic became a better passer.
when that's when Andy Reid sprinkled fairy dust all over him. But but for me, just to go back to the team, I stay. I hope I stay, and this team is good enough as constructed, and I just don't think any trade here makes you any better unless, you know what I'm saying, unless you're gonna move off of Lamar.
Which I don't think is out of the question now. Now that I think about it, you could actually flip Lamar for a more steady pocket passer,
quarterback
and
a receiver.
That could be a move. That's on the table as well. You don't have to pillage your running back. Your three-headed monster at running back. You could move off of Lamar and get a Derek Carr type, some guy in that 12 to 14, 12 to 15 range, and fill out and give yourself some wide receiver depth with all the question marks at wide receiver. So that could be a move,
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, in that case, I mean, I think I'm still at a B plus there.
Yeah, I think it's a consensus B plus team with A upside.
Without a doubt,
definitely with A upside, and just you stay with this team and you make this team definitely try and make.
Now
this
the question
work.
is, we could kind of start getting into our wrap up. Do we think this team is going to stay as is?
Absolutely not.
Considering
absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But I mean, he's just trading back and forth now, and it's just not doing. I mean, you didn't want the wide receiver, so you went and got Henry. Now you want the wide receiver, but now you got to give up something. And it's like,
that's what I'm saying.
You got to make up your mind what you want. Are you just trying to win right now, or do you want to try and get somebody, to last you for the long run? I mean,
you have to have some type of direction.
Yeah.
And the direction, yes. And the direction you were going for it right now. You traded Jamar Chase for King Henry because you said, I want to win a ship this year, and I want this three-headed running back. This three-headed running back, and like, you know what I'm saying? Now you got to do it because you can't trade Chubb when you got Henry on the roster with your receivers with this many question marks at receiver.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
I would
it's not smart business.
I would say even Eckler, because there's no really clear-cut guy that's just going to step up into his role.
No, Eckler's fantastic, man.
That's going to absorb all that, even if he gets hurt too. So,
exactly.
Then you're still, you're going to need Chubb because you don't have that next guy that's just going to step right up. It's not a Dalvin Cook Madison type thing where you're still safe because Madison.
Austin Eckler had 20 touchdowns, guys.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about him.
That's what,
It
and
was
that's
just on the low because he just did it.
he was.
ton of
He didn't
different
go
ways.
over 1,000 yards, either rushing or receiving, but 20 touchdowns, over 1,500 scrimmage yards. He was a number 2 back, PPR
man,
and standard.
70 catches you're talking about there.
Man, this guy's
Exactly.
good.
So he's gonna get the receiver production from Eckler. He'll get it from Andrews, and
Yeah.
if Mike Williams steps up, this team he definitely has a upside, and he can make a strong push. But I think too many trades, and you'll just start breaking this team down, and you won't be happy week 1.
Yeah. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the episode of Grading Dynasty Teams. So like, comment, subscribe, send us your team. We'll gladly go over it. But other than that, we'll see y'all next time.
Like the video.
Adios.